So obviously want to get into the album and talk a little music with you, but man, it feels like this album's been a long time coming in the making, and I'm kind of curious with the pandemic and all this past couple years we've all been dealing with. Had you been sitting on this material for a while, or were you just kind of releasing tunes as you wrote them?
No, so we've been working on this since I think, gosh, maybe we started in like mid 2020, like a little into the pandemic. We weren't really planning on doing a full length record. We were just kind of we actually recorded an entire album in late 2019 ourselves. It was like 12 or 13 songs, and I remember right before the pandemic, we sat back and we were listening to it before we were going to get it mixed or anything, and we just didn't like it, so we threw it away. And we started over, and so we weren't sure if we were going to do a record, but we started with this first batch of songs just kind of as we were going, and we kind of figured out our little method of how we were going to self produce it in our own studio and stuff. And so that's why you ended up getting a few of these singles a lot earlier on, because we did just release it as we were going at the time. I think the first one was Fish Friend, which was interesting because that, of course, would have never been the first single off this record, but it was just one of the first few songs that we were doing, not planning anything else. And we thought it was so cute and fun and had this great little video idea. And we hadn't put anything out in a really long time. And so we were kind of trying to figure out getting back in our momentum and everything. But I think after that, we just kind of kept going after those three songs. And then, with Buena and Sleep Count, and we were like, we should stop just releasing everything if we're going to keep, making this all together in one cohesive project. So that's kind of how that happened. We've been sitting on it now for a minute. Yeah, but like it was a whole process. It's not like we've been sitting around for like a few years with it or something.
Yeah, because I mean, certainly the pandemic screwed everybody up as far as release plans and everything, and so it's just kind of curious how it affected you. Crazy that you have a whole album worth of material that you just flushed down the toilet, or did you rework some of those songs?
Yeah, we reworked a few of the songs. A few of them. I mean, they like the songs still exist. It doesn't mean that we're never gonna do some of those songs again. It was just the way it was recorded, the way it sounded, the songs we chose, the way they were written at the time. We weren't into it. And yeah, it was it was a lot of work, but I don't know. We just didn't like it anymore. So and then we ended up having a lot of free time imminently after that. So because the world shut down, so it worked out.
And I got to ask, man, being in a band with brothers, a lot of times they're celebrated in music, but I always think about the opposite and fighting like cats and dogs with brothers. But you tell me.
Yeah, no, I mean they don't fight, but it does create this kind of, I don't know, team where it's me against the brothers a lot. Luckily, I am the singer and guitarist, so I have a little bit of leeway, but they're the entire rhythm section, so it creates a weird dynamic. I mean, they get along really well for brothers. They hang out independently. Like all their friends are friends, and they're in those same groups and stuff. But it has been this thing, especially because there's such a democracy we promote in Fencer of like, obviously like I'm the singer and stuff, but like we try and really equally have input on everything to the most part. Um, and that gets weird when it's like they have the same brain, kind of, not exactly, but like, they have had the same upbringing. Their parents who are great, but they like, they were raised a certain way, so they have it's and I wasn't part of that family, so it's this kind of interesting clash sometimes. But somehow we've made it work. We just hit 6 years today, actually. So
Wow.
yeah.
Congratulations. I was going to say, not that you or I will ever know exactly, but it must almost feel like giving birth, finally putting this album out.
Basically, yeah. I mean, you know what? It was funny. I was listening to it because I love to listen to my own music because I'm super pretentious. But I was listening to it in the car with my girlfriend the other night, and I was just like, man, I don't want to release it anymore. And she's like, why don't you want to release it anymore? I'm like, I don't know, because then it's like, then I can't just listen to it and be like, oh, look at my album. It's like then it'll just be like released. It'll just be like Junebug or something. Like, oh, it's just out. It's just a released song. So I don't know.
But the real trick is now that you're releasing it, now the work really begins, touring and marketing for it. That's when it really starts.
Exactly, exactly. And mentally we're already past this album. We're already working on what's next. So the idea is to not really slow down our momentum.
Speaking of mentally and talking a little mental health with you, I love that that's something that you love to talk about. My dad was a psychologist my whole life growing up, and I think that it's something that's criminally underrated, like not talked about enough. So I always love to give my platform the opportunity for people to speak about mental health, and you being a positive presence coach.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been a life coach with this company called Positive Presence for now the last maybe almost a year. And it's great. It's kind of like an alternative to therapy. It's pretty similar in a lot of ways, but I guess therapy is a very kind of one-sided experience. And you don't really have a relationship outside of the sessions, but this is kind of the idea of being able to build on your relationship and share from your own experiences. But yeah, mental health is super important to me. As I got into my early 20s and my own mental health started to deteriorate as it does, it just became something I guess I had to prioritize, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have been able to stay afloat. So I've just spent the last many years learning all sorts of techniques and skills and about how my brain works, and hundreds and hundreds of hours of therapy and DBT and all sorts of that jazz. So yeah, I'm pretty big on it.
I wish I could take the credit and say I was smart enough and planned it out to wear this blue shirt today and to go along with the color scheme, but it just happened to coincide that way. But I'm gonna butcher it, but synesthesia?
Synesthesia, yeah.
Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so it's this like I don't know condition. It's weird to call it a condition because it's just like a I don't know, just something I do in my head. But basically, where you associate letters and words with colors. Um, and I remember ever since I was in like kindergarten, I would always just I don't know, letters would be different colors to me, and words would be different colors, and I don't know why. I don't really know if it meant anything or resembled anything specifically. But basically, when we were starting this project, Cameron, our drummer, and myself, he and I wanted to figure out some kind of cool aesthetic or color scheme or something going on. And the first batch of songs that we had written, I don't know, I was like, oh, they're blue. I don't know why. It was I think at the time we had like Battery Pack, which is on our first EP, and a really old version of Joseph Courtney, which is actually on this new record. And then maybe a couple others, and they were just blue. And so we decided to go with that. And since then, we've just gotten so completely over the top with it. With essentially, whoa, what is happening on your screen?
I don't know. Tripped out for a second. There we go.
Yeah, I was sorry. It was distracting me. I was like, don't acknowledge that, but then I couldn't not. Anyways, no, and so we've just gotten completely over the top with it. With everything we do now is blue. If we're writing songs and they don't seem blue to me, we'll just kind of shelve them. All the lighting in our studio is blue. We only play in like saturated and blue lighting. Everything I own at this point is blue. I'm slowly like, converting my wardrobe into just blue things. Like even outside of Fencer, it's just become like my life color that I've adopted now. And I don't really know how it affects the sound. It definitely does because it's such a creative aspect of the band now, even musically. But it does something. So it's just it's what we do at this point.
Interesting. Do you know the band Baroness?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not super on it.
They do, you should check them out. You'd probably dig them, although not everything blue. They do different colors for each album. They have a
Mm.
red album, a
Ooh.
blue album, gold and gray, yellow and green and yellow. So they're kind of, I think, down your lane a little bit. And I'm like that a little bit. I'm more of a numbers guy. I'm
Okay.
with numbers, and sometimes colors have numbers. Well, I haven't really explored it. I think that's numerology. But, I've numbers
Cool.
that I like and don't like, I love even numbers and hate odd numbers, but 5 is an odd number, but that one's cool because it's
Right.
kinda even and, like, it's the whole thing, so I get that, man. I totally
Yeah.
get that to some degree.
Cool.
Uh-oh, my camera's wigging out again. One other thing I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm bummed that I missed the tour last year because I'm friends with the guys as well, but crossing I's and dotting T's. You guys went out and played some shows with them. They're playing your album release party. Love those guys and love that tune, Regret Stained Memories from them. But how'd you hook up with those guys?
Yeah, we I don't know, we just played some they're pretty local too in LA. They jump around like Orange County and stuff too, but we hooked up at some show, and I think Matt, the singer, he approached us and was like, "Hey, you guys are cool. We should start doing stuff." And we just got along really well, and like became friends outside of that. It's funny now because that band as we knew it, I'm very excited to see them tomorrow night because like three of the four members have now switched, so it's a totally new lineup, as far as how they're gonna present themselves. So I'm very excited to see that. But Matt and then the original guys that we knew, I mean, we just kind of fell in love with each other, and we became really close. And so yeah, we went on a little run, and that was very fun, and we just kind of play together whenever we can. They're good guys.
Yeah, totally good guys, and glad to see you guys hooking up. And really cool that saw you went on tour with Badflower and the band that I'm really loving right now, Dead Poet Society.
Yeah. Yeah, no, they're cool. That was we've known Badflower for a long time. Me and Josh, the singer, he produced our first EP, and they've opened a lot of doors for us. And then yeah, Dead Poet Society, they're great guys too. We actually played our third show ever with them in 2017 at the Viper Room.
Oh wow.
Um, and then we didn't, and we didn't even know each other at the time. Like I don't think any of us could hang out in the venue to see their set because we weren't 21. Um, but I remember I shook the singer's hand, and then we parted ways. And then they ended up on this Badflower tour with us, and I think the next time we saw them was like at this sold out show we were both playing on in Nashville. And so it was a really weird little turnaround thing.
Yeah, crazy band, and they all went to the Music Institute,
Yeah. Yep.
Berkeley, in
Yep.
and all like it's like they learned all the rules just so they could break them all.
Right. Exactly.
Kind of curious, man. You came from the acting world, and who was the guy that made you want to, put down the script and pick up the guitar? Was there one specific guitar player that made you want to play and sing and go the music route?
Now, well, I don't like guitar, and I don't like guitar players. So which I barely know how to play guitar. I'm not a big that's why we only have the one in the band, and I'm just like guitar playing isn't my thing, which is a weird thing to say. But I don't know, I think it was more just natural. I think just over the years, I started acting when I was super young, so you kind of get to a point when I was like in high school. I started when I was like 6, so like 10 years later, I was just kind of into different things. I mean, I was super into a lot of bands growing up. I loved a pop punk band called Sum 41 for many
Oh
years. That when I
yeah.
was like little, that was like my whole thing. That was a big introduction into really digging music like independently outside of like just my dad playing it for me and stuff. Um, but I don't know. I think early on some of these like when Royal Blood first hit the scene in like 2014, I was listening to that album a lot, and that was just kind of really inspiring me. Some of the early highly suspect stuff. I obviously love the White Stripes if you can't tell. So some of that kind of stuff, but I really listen to a lot of things. I love Morphine too, which we have a cover of one of their tracks on the new record. They're a great 90s kind of like jazz rock band. So
You ever dig into like the heavier side of things? Ever go get into metal or Metallica or anything?
sometimes, yeah, yeah, I love listening to you're gonna kill me. Justice for All, that's the name of the record, right?
And Justice for All, yeah.
And Justice for All, because I just think it's so funny how there's no bass on that album, like any of it. I think that's the funniest thing. I'm like, what? You listen for it too because you're like, he recorded on this. Where the hell is it? I think that's so great.
Well, and do you know the backstory behind it? Why there is no bass, kind of?
Wasn't it the drummer kept being like, "Oh, just turn it down more," and then it just ended up just being basically not there?
Yeah, it was the sound they were going for, but kind of tied into they had tragically lost their bass player in a bus accident
Oh, okay.
a couple years before, so it was their new bass player's first album, and I think they just kinda didn't wanna hear any bass at
Right, right. No, that makes more sense. And I mean, it also works with that kind of sound of just like all highs and lows and like no mid, just like that kind of guitar sound kind of fills it out a little bit.
Yeah, good stuff. I was gonna say, we do a feature called Mandatory Metallica, and if you had to cover one, what tune would you cover? Can you think of any, up Injustice?
Oh, um, I mean, I think the generic one. This is often just one, right?
Yeah, there's only one Injustice album.
No, what's the
Oh, the song one.
The song "One,"
Yeah.
yes. No, 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 that's okay, I was just making sure it's off the same record. Yeah, and it's the lame way I was introduced to it is through Guitar Hero 3. I think that's the
Ah,
first time I really got into that, and that was a super hard song to play, and I played it hundreds of times till I could beat it on whatever hard or expert or something, and I was like, "This is kinda cool." I dig the opening of that song's great.
yeah, do you ever pick up the guitar and play the opening, those first couple notes?
No, you know what? I barely know how to play any song like guitar songs outside of our own. It's really bizarre. And I
Huh.
like don't practice guitar. I like to keep myself like really fumbling on the instrument and not really knowing what I'm doing with it. I don't know, it's just kind of like a fun little experiment for me.
Do you almost write backwards and do lyrics and then write the guitar around the lyrics then?
Yeah, it's not even lyrics. Lyrics end up being the very last thing, but I don't write on guitar. It's mostly melodies. I'll come up with guitar melodies and vocal melodies and drum ideas and stuff. And I have an app in my phone where I can like layer a bunch of voice memos basically. And so I'll just do that for hours and messing him around and stuff. Sometimes I write stuff on guitar, but very rarely. I mean, I feel like whenever I pick up my guitar, I end up just playing very similar things over and over when I'm like trying to um, create from there. So I just kind of, I don't know. I like singing. I'm good at singing, so I just kind of make it up in my head.
Beautiful, man. Thank you so much for the time, and best of luck with the album, and hope to see you out there on the road.
Thank you very much, Mike. Really appreciate it. Have a good one.
You too. Cheers.
Cheers.